Hello everyone, welcome to another video by me, Turtle Lags, for the game Reverse 1999. I have a very special video for you that I did a lot of prep work for. Basically, the objective of this video is to go over team compositions for every single 5-star and 6-star character that is currently in the game. And I talked with a lot of free-to-play players on Discord to kind of get a feel for how many 6-stars and 5-star characters a day one free-to-play player who's active can reasonably obtain if they use anywhere between 2/3 to 100% of their pools. Because by this time we have Tooth Fairy, and most people who are saving their precious drops have dumped it into Tooth Fairy. I don't know anyone who has not. And so for this reason, it is reasonable to assume that whether or not you won or lost the 50-50 for Tooth Fairy, the average day one free-to-play player is expected to have about 5 6-star characters and 10 to 12 5-star characters. This is actually a conservative estimate because most of my friends who are free-to-play on my friends list have actually 80% of the 5-star characters. And currently there are, I believe, 15 5-star characters and 11, let me see. There's 14 6-star characters and 15 5-star characters, if I counted it correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, yes. So, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. And basically what I did was I went through every 6-star unit and every 5-star unit's kit, categorized them based on DPSs, supports, and healers, and then came up with the most efficient combinations I could make for every single one of the units. Now, not a single 5-star or 6-star unit is going to be skipped in this video. I will have timestamps for all 14 6-stars and all 15 5-stars. That way you can kind of skip over to the characters you have and see the party recommendations that I recommend with the characters that you own. Now, based on my calculations, there are 12 DPSs, 11 supports, and 5 healers, which creates a maximum 660 different team composition permutations. Now, that doesn't mean that they're all viable. As a matter of fact, I would say maybe 2/3 of them are not viable for different reasons. One reason is because of the 12 DPSs that are, 5-star and 6-stars combined, there were out of the 12 DPSs, 10 of them were viable, in my opinion. Out of the 11 supports, 10 were viable, and out of the 5 healers, all of them were viable. Now, there are certain DPSs that, even though they are viable, they require very specific supports. For instance, Druvis, who wants mental teammates or plant teammates, or same thing goes with, what's her name? Satsuki, yeah, who also petrifies and wants to be surrounded by mental teammates. But additionally, there are some DPSs that also function as sub-DPSs. For instance, Satsuki can be a sub-DPS for Druvis because they are both mental plant petrifiers. So you can just like petrify lock your enemies, for instance. Or let's say Regulus, who can function as a main DPS or a sub DPS. So those are some examples. Additionally, you have to take into consideration that unless you own all the characters, which most people don't, you optimally, when creating two different parties for Limbo, side 1 and side 2, with the exception of A Knight and X, the other characters you typically would want on one side. And for that reason, I specifically created these team compositions to be realistic, right? Like, realistically on side 1, that is weak to Mineral, you're going to be running Mineral and Star on that side, because I believe the other side, Star was weak to that side, if memory serves me right. And for that reason, I'm not going to recommend a team composition that in practice in Limbo is going to be rough, especially for free-to-plays who don't have Resonate 10 level 60, Side Cube level 60, character level 60, Resonate 10 on all their characters. You know, like, that's unrealistic. So I would say that the grand total of team compositions I'm going to propose to you today are probably around like in the 200s. Okay, but I'm going to do it efficiently, that way this is not like a 3-hour long video. Alright, so without further ado, I'm going to start with the DPSs, and I'm going to go a flatus by a flatus. So let's start with the DPSs first. So like I said, there's 12 DPSs, 10 of which are viable. I'll go over team compositions for all of them. In case you're curious, of the 12 DPSs, we have 3 Beast, 2 Plant, 1 Spirit, 1 Mineral, and 5 Star DPSs, okay? So let's start with the Beast DPSs first, which you will use on side 2 of Limbo. I'm going to start with Centurion because that's a character that a lot of people re-rolled for. Centurion has a lot of great supports and healers. So my top recommendations for Centurion, actually I think what I'll do, actually let's just do it this way. So if I go into Limbo, I already reset side 2. Okay, here, let me just go to Centurion here. So my top recommendations for healers, since there's fewer healers, you can either go I would say my top choice is Medicine Pocket, but every account comes with a DK, so if not Medicine Pocket, then definitely DK. Where is she? DK, where are you? Yeah, DK or Sotheby. Okay, so for Centurion, all 3 healers, Medicine Pocket, DK, and Sotheby, are going to be viable. I'm just going to have DK up on the screen just because everyone has a DK. So don't feel bad if you don't have Medicine Pocket, because DK is an excellent healing unit that can also contribute some damage as well. Medicine Pocket is nice because she also has the ability to daze, and that can be very useful for basically preventing the enemy from taking action sometimes, which can save on damage that you would have taken, which allows you to attack more, right? Because you're healing less. Now for the supports, there are 7 supports I would recommend. I'm going to go over the top 4 first. My number 1 choice, if you have her, is Anan Lee. The reason why I believe Anan Lee is the best support for Centurion is because Centurion, she has a neat trick where her mass attack at incantation level 2 or higher increases 1 moxie for her, and so for that reason, if you have Anan Lee doing her ultimate, and you know Anan Lee's ultimate is basically for the next 2 rounds randomly levels up 1 incantation. If you manage to level up her Centurion's incantations, it allows her single target or mass attack incantations to hit harder. And if you do the mass attack, then she gains +1 Moxie, which allows her to get her ultimate up faster or get her Moxie up faster in case you use up the ultimate. So Anan Lee, I feel, is the best partner for her. Another fantastic partner is Bkornblume. I would say she is the second best support for a Centurion. And the reason is because Bkornblume does so much. All of her skills are useful, just like Anan Lee. Bkornblume, she can shred enemy defenses, if I remember it correctly. Yeah, shred enemy defenses and increases the damage they take. And her ultimate also seals the enemy for 3 rounds, which allows you to not have to heal as much because you're preventing the enemy from using their ultimate. And then, even if the target is immune to seal, you can steal 2 Moxie. So it just really helps maintain tempo, keep those Centurion incantations flowing, get that damage in. So I would say Centurion is, she so far has Anan Lee, fantastic support, Bkornblume, fantastic support. The third best choice for a Centurion, I think, is Tennant. Where are you, Tennant? And Tennant I mentioned because Tennant is Beast Afflatus, and so especially if you are fighting against an enemy that is weak to that, the 30% extra damage bonus will allow Tennant to contribute some damage as well. Tennant is more of a defensive unit, however, her ultimate does load 2 rounds of Diamond Bullet, which shreds reality defense, and Centurion is a reality DPS. So I still think that Anan Lee and Bkornblume provide more valuable for Centurion compared to Tennant, just because Anan Lee, she can daze, she can buff, she can level up incantations. Bkornblume, she can shred defense, she can seal the enemy's ultimate and also provide some DPS. So those two, even though they are plant units, they are still better supports in my opinion. Now, Pickles is an honorable mention, and the reason why I felt confident in recommending Pickles on side 1 is because everybody gets Sonetto. And so Sonetto is a character that you can use on the other side. And remember, so side 2 of Limbo is weak to Beast and is neutral to Plant. It's also neutral to one other Afflatus, however, you want that other Afflatus on the other side. So given that everyone has a Sonetto, if you have a Pickles as well, Pickles is a good option for Centurion because you won't miss out on an Earth support on the other side. And Pickles is a very good support because Pickles is AP generous, meaning that Pickles doesn't need to use as many actions to create immense value. And for some reason I can't find Pickles. I don't know why. Oh, because I used Pickles on side 1. Okay, that's why. Yeah, so anyways, Pickles is an honorable mention. And same goes with Sonetto. If you have a Pickles and Sonetto, then you could also use Sonetto with Centurion and then Pickles on the other side. Although with this particular Limbo, side 2 is harder, so you probably want Pickles on side 2 because Pickles is a better support than Sonetto. Sonetto provides a lot of utility, but Pickles is, I would say, the clear winner because of the AP generous as well as providing a team-wide damage boost from his ultimate. So I think that's just too valuable to skip over. And then the last support recommendation would be X. And X is going to be a support that I mention a lot because he's a very good utility unit that has the ability to dispel almost anything you want, but his ultimate is absolutely insane. Basically the ultimate, without any criteria, just flat out removes 2 Moxie from the entire enemy party. This is actually one of the most powerful ultimates that I know of, because even Moxie stealing units like Melania, or I forget the other unit, but they aren't able to remove that much Moxie as much as X. So I thought I'd throw that out there. So that is Centurion. Next we're going to go over Melania as the main DPS. So let me go ahead and switch over to Melania. Now Melania has pretty much the exact same support and healer recommendations. I still think that Lee, Bkornblume, Pickles, and Diggers are going to be the top supports for Melania. And then honorable mentions would be Tennant, Sonetto, and X. Actually, I forgot to mention Diggers, so let me go back to Diggers. So Diggers is also a very good support for Centurion and Melania, and the reason is because his entire kit's useful. His debuff, even at level 1, shreds defense, whether it's reality or mental defense, which means that he will benefit both Centurion, a reality DPS, as well as Melania, a mental DPS. And then his one target attack is able at incantation 2 or higher to apply weakness, which makes it so that let me see, when the caster attacks, basically makes it so that whoever has the 2 stacks of weakness will deal less damage to you, which can help with survivability. But additionally, he also has the ability to inflict nightmare for up to 2 turns, which basically causes the enemy to not be able to attack so long as you don't attack the nightmared enemy afterwards during that round. So okay, so we went over Melania. So next I'm going to go over Sweetheart. Now Sweetheart isn't as strong of a DPS as Centurion or Melania. Sweetheart is it's a 5-star. She's a 5-star beast DPS. Now I still think that Sweetheart is viable because her ultimate is able to shred reality and mental defense, as well as inflict daze for 1 round. I think this is also one of the most powerful ultimates available to us. I think the only problem with Sweetheart is that with her incantations, they don't provide a whole lot of utility. It requires actually specific criteria to be met, such as someone like Bkornblume or Diggers to debuff the enemy to make her, Slight Breeze incantation deal extra reality damage. So for Sweetheart, I would say that a unit that is able to shred the enemy defense, or like just debuff the enemy, like Diggers and Bkornblume, are going to be very good for her. I think Lee is still fantastic choice, just because you can basically daze lock the enemy by alternating between Sweetheart's daze, Lee's daze, and Medicine Pocket's daze. Even if you got like 3 units that can daze the enemy, which is incredibly powerful. Don't even need a heal if you can keep it up. Same thing, Tennant, Pickles, Sonetto, X, they're all viable for Sweetheart for the same reasons that they are viable for Centurion and Melania. Sorry if I keep looking up, I'm just looking at my notes, and I'm trying to do this quick. Okay, let's talk about Druvis. This one took actually not as much time as I thought once I understood everyone's kit. So Druvis, I think a lot of people are going to be interested in this, because a lot of people or some people are beginning to wake up as to the potential of Druvis, but I think a lot of people, including myself, have been holding back on i3 and Druvis just because I think people are under the impression that she doesn't have a lot of good supports that pair well with her. But I would argue that Druvis has just as many good supports as the other three beast DPSs that I mentioned. The only thing is that there are certain partners that are very good for her. And so I'm going to go over that right now. So there are 3 supports that I think best pair with Druvis, along with 2 close seconds. So I'm going to start with Diggers, because Diggers meets two teammate criterias that Druvis wants. So let me pull up Druvis first, and then I'll kind of go over what I have in mind. Oh, and actually, in this particular case, I'm going to switch to Sotheby, and here's why. So, with Melania's i3, basically she's able to provide a team-wide 10% damage boost to all plant units, and in addition, allow all plant units to do leech raid. I was doing a little bit of play testing because I was trying to figure out, okay, Sotheby is a reality damage dealer. However, does poison dispel petrify? Because if it doesn't, then you can order it in such a way that Sotheby never breaks up Druvis's petrify. And I did some testing before I filmed this video, and I confirmed that so long as you do Sotheby's debuff first, so just apply the two stacks of poison, or apply the stacks of poison for 2 rounds. So basically you go triple the dose and then petrify with your Druvis. And by doing that, what will happen is the reality damage from triple the dose does not dispel the petrify, and then when the poison procs at the end of the turn, the poison does not count as reality damage. I did confirm with the playthrough that the enemy does stay petrified during their turn. So for this reason, I do think an i3 Sotheby is the best healer for an i3 Druvis the third. However, for those of you, I would say pairing Druvis the third with Sotheby is like driving a stick shift. It's basically you can make it work and work really well. However, if you want to go like brain dead, mode, then you still got excellent choices in both Medicine Pocket and in Dikke, because both of them are mental healers. You see, Medicine Pocket is mental, and then Dikke is also mental. Okay, I can't find Dikke right now, but you know what I mean. So, Druvis, the best partners are, I would say the number 1 choice is Diggers, because Diggers, even though he doesn't apply a buff that would benefit Druvis, because, with Druvis's I1, when Druvis has a stats up, she can deal 20% more damage. Unfortunately, Diggers does, even though he is a mental support, he is a plant unit, he is a mental support, however, he doesn't have a buffing action to my knowledge. And yeah, it's pretty much, he's like a debuffer / a dispeller of enemy buffs, and a crowd controller too. But even so, I would say that Diggers has the most synergy with Druvis because of the plant, the mental, and that's the reason. And so, he can take advantage of Circle of Life, he can take advantage of, not interrupting Druvis's petrifies. And Satsuki is another excellent sub DPS support to partner with Druvis. Let me go ahead and pull up Satsuki. So the reason for this is because Satsuki is also a plant mental. She actually is a DPS as well. However, I think that even though her kit is kinda not that amazing, but she has two different ways to petrify, either with this rabbit incantation at level 2 or higher, or her ultimate. Basically, Satsuki is like a backloaded Druvis, where she needs to generate stacks of rigidity, and then when you get 2 stacks of rigidity, it becomes a petrify, as opposed to Druvis, who automatically petrifies. So you can basically petrify lock the enemy party by petrifying with both Druvis and Satsuki. They will not interrupt each other. Another honorable mention, of course, is Pickles, because Pickles is a mental support, and we all get Sonetto, and so you could arguably use Sonetto on the other side, freeing up your Pickles to be on the harder side too. However, unlike the prior 3 beast DPSs that I had mentioned, Centurion, Melania, and Sweetheart, Sonetto does not serve as a good support for Druvis, because Sonetto is a reality support who is not plant. So not a whole lot of synergies there. Honorable mention, Sotheby is also a good sub DPS for Druvis. If you want to just have like really good survivability, what you can do is you can run Druvis, Sotheby as a support and secondary healer, and then like a medicine pocket or Dikke. So that is also an excellent choice. Anna Lee and Bkornblume, they are both reality supports. However, because they are plant, you can, if you're okay with driving a stick shift, you can just line up the incantations so that Anna Lee and Bkornblume's incantations do not dispel Druvis's petrify. I should mention that Anna Lee has additional synergy with Druvis compared to Bkornblume, in the sense that Anna Lee does buff all your allies, and as I mentioned before with Druvis's I1, Insight 1, when Druvis has a buff, she deals an additional 20% damage. Okay? And then finally, if you somehow don't have diggers, Anna Lee, Bkornblume, Satsuki, Sotheby, or Pickles, you can go with Tennant, because Tennant, if I'm not mistaken, oh, actually, I'm going to take Tennant out. She's reality and is not plant. So, sorry, not Tennant. So, Druvis has 6 good supports and 3 good healers. Okay, and actually, so I'm going to take that out for Satsuki as well. So, Satsuki, I'm going to go ahead and pull her up as a DPS. Satsuki is really a DPS that has some crowd control. Satsuki is kind of like Druvis 2.0. It's kind of like a backloaded Druvis that requires a little more stick shifting in order to get the petrifies rolling. But, for the same exact reasons, Diggers, Anna Lee, Bkornblume, Druvis, Sotheby, and Pickles are all going to be good supports for Satsuki. And then Medicine Pocket, Dikke, and Sotheby will be good supports for Satsuki, although I don't know if Sotheby will be a good partner with Satsuki, because Satsuki doesn't really have any plant synergies, and Sotheby is a reality healer, unfortunately. So I almost want to say Sotheby is not even a good healer for her. So really, if you're going to run Satsuki, the healer should be either Medicine Pocket or Dikke. I'm going to pull up Dikke just because everyone has her, from my understanding. Okay, so next we're going to talk about side 1. So for side 2, we have 5 different DPSs that we can choose from, 3 beast and 2 plant. I'll go over A Knight at the end. It'll flow better if I put A Knight at the end. I'm going to go over side 1 of Limbo next. So side 1, as you all know, is weak to mineral. Let me go ahead and reset side 1 just so that I'm reminded of the weaknesses. Okay. So Eternity is the only Earth DPS, and she's a 6-star. We don't have another Earth DPS until version 1.3 when we get Black Dwarf. And Black Dwarf is also a 6-star DPS, Earth DPS. So we don't have a whole lot of Earth DPSs. We have a lot of Earth supports. We have like 4 Earth supports. Let me go ahead and pull up Eternity. That was actually the reason why I wanted Eternity so bad and prayed that I got her early on, because I was scouting ahead and realized, wow, we don't have a whole lot of mineral DPS coverage. Plus her artwork's amazing. So with Eternity, there's 2 different healers that will work with her on side 1. It'll be either Tooth Fairy or Balloon Party. I'm gonna do Balloon Party just because that's probably a little more accessible, but Tooth Fairy is also an excellent healer for Eternity. Eternity on the crit build, which I have right now, is able to achieve a crit rate of almost like 45%, if I'm looking at this correctly. I think it's like 43.5%. So with, Tooth Fairy's confusion along with her insight that also further decreases their crit rate resist, Eternity is able to crit I think like 75% or 80% of the time when you have a fully built Resonate 10 Eternity. And so I think that the best healers for Eternity are either Tooth Fairy for more damage or Balloon Party for more defensive coverage. And yeah, they're both pretty close. And then for partners, I would say my 2 favorite partners are either Pickles or Sonetto. Pickles is my favorite choice just because Pickles is AP generous and further increases the damage dealt by Eternity and makes her numbers look good. But Sonetto is very good if you need a little more crowd control with her debuff, which basically makes the opponent cannot attack, makes the target cannot attack. Yeah. And then, of course, other choices are for supports are Miss NewBabel for more defensive coverage, and then Necrologist for more survivability with her revival. Actually, Necrologist is interesting because she also has the ability to increase the damage dealt from your other allies. So Necrologist is kind of like it provides defensive coverage via prayer for revival, as well as damage dealt increased by the other allies. Because, a lot of people say that Eternity doesn't have the best DPS. I do think that she has amazing damage output in a crowd situation where you got 3 different targets. But yeah, when you have Pickles or Necrologist, increasing the damage output of Eternity, it makes it so like you don't really notice that. And the best part is just Eternity is kind of like a paladin in that she heals herself and is resistant to a bunch of crowd control debuffs. So it's just a very comfy experience. And then Voyager actually is a very good partner with Eternity as well. It's not the combination that people think of at first, but I have run Eternity with Voyager because Voyager, she kind of adds to the adds to the sustainability of the tankiness, overall tankiness of your party by, casting sturdiness on your party. She adds supplemental damage. Her insights, silence the enemy party every 3 actions of hers, and she also removes Moxie with her ultimate, as well as even, if you get level 2 insight of her, she can add a stack of confusion, which can synergize with Tooth Fairy's Insight 1 to make Eternity crit even more reliably. Yes. And then the last suggestion I have would be X. Just, if all else fails, like you don't have Pickles, Miss NewBabel, well, you have Sonetto, but X is another alternative if for whatever reason you don't want to play Sonetto. Okay, so that was Eternity, our only Earth DPS, and now we're going to go over the 4-star DPSs. 5-star DPSs, 3 of which are viable, but I'll go through all of them because I am time stamping everything, and I think the most important thing whenever you play a gacha game like this is to play your most favorite characters. So even though Blonney and Matilda are not the best star DPSs, or just they're not really, their kit kind of sucks for a DPS role. However, if you are, if Blonney's your waifu or if Matilda's your waifu, I'm going to still give you support recommendations. So let's start with Lilya first. So Lilya is a very interesting character because she has some unique partners that are better for her, that provide extra value for her. So in Regulus's case, in Lilya's case, there is one healer that I would recommend, Tooth Fairy. However, if you feel the 50-50 for Tooth Fairy, Balloon Party will function just fine on Limbo Side 1, because Lilya isn't exactly the tankiest either, and the supplemental damage from her Incantation 2 heals can help a little bit. I would say the best partners for Lilya, if you have Tooth Fairy, are Pickles and Regulus. The reason being is that if you have an I3 Lilya, Tooth Fairy's Insight 1 as well as Confusion debuffs combined with Lilya's Psycube and her I3 should get Lilya to crit fairly reliably, if not 100%, close to it. So Voyager will not be as necessary for Lilya. You can have Pickles for more general damage output. You can also have Regulus for just to kind of add to the damage output and allow you to be able to cast a lot more Lilya incantations without feeling like your supports are left in the dust, right? Because Regulus is AP friendly. Now, if you don't have Tooth Fairy and you have Balloon Party, where are you? Then Voyager gains a lot of value, because Voyager, even though she isn't able to confuse the enemy as consistently as Tooth Fairy, because she needs an I2, she needs a level 2 of her debuff incantation to start applying confusion stacks. However, Voyager will just add to the consistency of Lilya in critting. X I did mention as a support if you don't have Voyager, Pickles, or Regulus, and you don't want to play Sonetto. Okay, so that is Lilya for you. Regulus as a main DPS has a similar story to Lilya in that ideally you do want Tooth Fairy as a healer, and then Voyager actually gains stock with Regulus because Regulus has an ability called Restless Heart that when you basically rest for a turn, she gets a stack of Restless Heart, which allows her to gain 50% crit rate. And, with Tooth Fairy, along with her crit rate Psi Cube, as well as a Resonate 10 crit build, I don't have it because I don't have Resonate 10 Regulus, but with all that in mind, Regulus can realistically exceed 100% crit rate, but with Restless Heart, which is her Insight ability, any excess crit rate is converted to crit damage. So for this reason, I do think the best team is Regulus, Voyager, and Tooth Fairy. However, I did try that, and it is still a little awkward just because for Regulus to be played optimally, you do want to play her to attack with her every other turn, but Voyager doesn't do that much damage. So for that reason, I would suggest actually having Lilya as a sub DPS, just because I think at the end of the day, Regulus and Lilya, I think they do have a pretty good partnership. So yeah, I would still go Regulus, Lilya, and Tooth Fairy. Regulus, Pickles, and Tooth Fairy would also be very good. Regulus, Sonetto, and Tooth Fairy is so-so. And, X as a fail-safe if you, for whatever reason, don't have any of those. And then Charlie has fewer options if you want her to be a main DPS. Where are you? Yeah, so, Regulus and Lilya, they can partner up, but Charlie can't really partner up with... Well, actually, Charlie could partner up with Regulus, so actually I should... Oh, yeah, and I did include that. Okay, good. So I would say the best teams for Charlie are either Charlie, Voyager, Tooth Fairy, Charlie, Pickles, Tooth Fairy, or Charlie, Regulus, Tooth Fairy. But Balloon Party will also work if you don't have Tooth Fairy. And then for both Blonney and Matilda, it's kind of rough because Blonney really, she really wants crit rate. It's not that she, does extra attacks with crit rate like Lilya does. However, with Sweetheart, both her attack or her... see. Oh no, what am I doing? It's not Sweetheart. Blonney, where are you? Okay, I was like, the kit doesn't make sense. Oh yeah, here we go. So yeah, Blonney, both her kits, both incantations enjoy additional crit rate. Well, this one indirectly in the sense you apply confusion and then that's your crit rate right there. But it seems to me that they really want her to crit. Although she doesn't do any follow-up attacks additionally, she just, the way crit rate works is that the higher your crit rate, the more reliably you can have high damage output. So it would make perfect sense to want to get the crit rate to at least 75% overall to have consistency. So in Blonney's case, she will most definitely want Voyager and Tooth Fairy. That would be her optimal team.
Fine. Genius.
Yes. And if you don't have that, then Sonetto, Pickles, X, and Regulus would make decent sub DPSs. But Voyager is the best support, and Tooth Fairy is the best healer for her. Then for Matilda, she's let me see here. Matilda doesn't provide much in terms of DPS. I think she has the ability to apply confusion to the enemy, but it has to be an incantation too. Her mass attack doesn't really contribute much, and then the ultimate, yeah, it just enjoys an additional crit rate. So I would say in some ways Matilda is worse than Blonney. But Matilda, for those of you who want to play her as a main DPS, same idea. You want Voyager, Tooth Fairy, that would be the ideal setup. And then Sonetto, Pickles, X, and Regulus are the other options. Okay, and then now for A Knight. A Knight is a very special situation in that A Knight has a kit that allows him to pretty much fuel his own ultimate spamming. So I put in the notes here that for side 1, you can use every support, every healer. For side 2, you can use every support, every healer. But I would say the best support for A Knight would be Anne and Lee. And the reason for that is because A Knight, both of his incantations add Moxie. However, one of his incantations needs a level 2 or higher in order to generate Moxie. Yeah, so this one, Moxie +1 to himself, starting with incantation 2. But if you play Anne and Lee's ultimate levels up a random incantation for 1 turn for the next 2 rounds. So it's entirely possible you could level up this glory and further add to A Knight's consistency. If you don't have that, then any support that increases damage output or shreds enemies' defenses are going to be excellent for A Knight. A Knight is incredibly flexible. Okay, so now that we've gone over all the DPSs, now we're going to go over all the supports. And so there's going to be some redundancy here. However, I think this is still going to be useful for those of you who just want to skip to the timestamp that I put. So I'm going to go over the beast supports. Okay, so for supports, there are 11 supports, 10 of which are viable. In case you're curious, we have 1 beast support, 3 plant supports, 1 intellect support, 1 spirit support, 4 mineral supports, and 2 star supports. The one support that I don't think is really viable is the spirit support click. So for those click enjoyers, I'm just going to make it quick. I'm just going to have click number 1 right now. I can't even find him. If click is your husbando, then, well, actually, let me go over why I don't think click is a good support. The problem with click is that he does have debuffs for each of his incantations, but they both require level 2 or higher. And just realistically, that's not going to be good for clearing limbo, because with limbo, you want to spend more time attacking with your damage dealers and less time leveling up your supports, or less time like combining support incantations to get that level up. And I don't think his ultimate provides that much utility either. It just makes it so that you take less damage. He's like a damage mitigator / dispeller. Very expensive. Just a very expensive damage mitigator / Moxie remover. So I don't think click will make a good support even for Druvis and Druvis or Satsuki, just because even though he's mental, he's just too costly of a support play-wise. So I'm just going to get that out of the way. If you want to play him, play what you enjoy, but I think it's going to be a little rough. Okay, so let's start with the beast support here. So the first one is Tennant. Tennant as a beast support is decent because she applies shields and her ultimate applies 2 rounds of diamond bullet, which shreds reality defense. So in Tennant's case, you do want to have a reality DPS to take advantage of the reality defense shred. So the 2 DPSs I would recommend are either Centurion or A Knight. And I think chances are, I would say, if you want to take advantage of the Beast Afflatus, Centurion is going to be your best your best DPS to partner with her. I would say most people who play Tennant are going to be partnering her with Centurion. Yeah. So, and then for healers, it could be, most likely it will be Dikke because everybody has Dikke. However, if you have a medicine pocket, that is also an excellent choice. Where's Dikke? Okay, anyways, I'm going to move on. So next would be Ann Lee. So Ann Lee as a support, she is one of the most universal supports out there because she has a universal damage buff, universal damage mitigation, and by universal I mean it benefits both reality and mental. Yep, just flat damage. And then her level 3 Taoist Rune dazes, and her ultimate levels up incantation. So for that reason, let's say like notable mentions would be Druvis, Centurion, Melania, and A Knight, just because those are the premium damage dealers, and then Satsuki and Sweetheart being alternatives if you don't have any of those for 6 stars. Okay, and then as for healers, same thing, Medicine Pocket, Dikke, Sotheby, they will all work for her. So that's Ann Lee. Bkornblume is also another universal support. And so for Bkornblume, once again, just like Ann Lee, the DPSs I would recommend to accompany her, I'm just going to go ahead and put Druvis up here, but it would be Druvis, Centurion, Melania, A Knight, and then Satsuki and Sweetheart as alternative DPSs. Then for Diggers, another fantastic support, same exact story. Yeah, same exact story.
This is groovy. Let's get on the road.
Alright, so we're done with the plant DPSs. Pickles is next. This will be on side 2. Although side 1 as well because everyone has a Sonetto. So I'll go ahead and pull Pickles up here. So for Pickles, I would say because you'll likely run Pickles in a Earth weak or neutral limbo side. So I would say the best partner for Eternity, there's a bunch of good options. Eternity comes to mind just because Earth with Earth, you know, keep the flattices consistent. But if you want to, you know, be a little more creative, you can do like Lilya, Regulus, Charlie, or A Knight as the DPSs. For the healers, I would only recommend Tooth Fairy and Balloon Party. Just because Sotheby, she doesn't really have any synergy with the DPSs that Pickles most likely will partner with. Okay, and then next I'm going to go over Miss NewBabel. So Miss NewBabel,
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
she is unique in that she is a tank that draws aggro and also counterattacks. So if you want to have like a super uber sustain party, you can either do Miss NewBabel, Eternity Tooth Fairy, or Miss NewBabel, Eternity Balloon Party. If you feel like survivability is no problem, you most likely will go like Miss NewBabel, A Knight, Tooth Fairy, because since Miss NewBabel is more defensive, so you probably want a hyper offensive DPS. And so Lilya, Regulus, and Charlie are also honorable mentions with Miss NewBabel, but I would say A Knight and Eternity are the best DPSs that complement her. Sonetto is actually a similar story. Sonetto, pretty much Eternity and A Knight would be the ones that I would recommend to partner with her. But of course, you know, if you want to run, if you have a really good star DPS like Lilya, Regulus, or Charlie fully built, then those would make good DPS alternatives. And then Necrologist, actually it's pretty similar. With Necrologist, same story, Eternity, A Knight would be the best DPSs. I feel like the star DPSs generally want a star support, just because the star supports are the ones that apply confusion, generally speaking. So those are the four mineral supports, and then finally we have the 1-star support, which would be Voyager. And Voyager is incredibly flexible. She doesn't have good damage output unless the enemy is like spamming attacks. However, she does make one of the best supports, crowd control, and enabling supports. So with Voyager, I pretty much anyone will work with her. Eternity, Lilya, well, actually, if you're running Voyager, you most likely will run a star DPS, so I'll go ahead and put Lilya as the premier star DPS. However, besides Lilya, Regulus, and Charlie, Eternity would benefit from Voyager, A Knight would benefit from Voyager, and Blonney would also benefit a lot from Voyager. Matilda, I don't really recommend her as a DPS if you can help it. But Matilda is also an option as well. And then just to round out the last few 5 stars and 6 stars, we have a total of 5 healers, all of which are viable. So we got 2 beast healers, 1 plant healer, 1 mineral healer, and 1 star healer. And so naturally you will want to run the healers on the side that they are advantageous on, or at least minimum neutral. So we'll start with Tooth Fairy, who you will run on side 1. So for Tooth Fairy, I would say because she applies confusion, so star DPSs like Lilya and Regulus will really benefit from her. However, Tooth Fairy, I have in my notes, will work with any support, any DPS. She is truly a universal healer. And then I'll go over Balloon Party next. So Balloon Party is a more accessible healer, 5-star. She is also fairly universal. You can partner her up with any damage dealer or any support. Now, because Balloon Party is such a defensive unit, she has 2 different ways to heal via her incantation, healing incantation, as well as her ultimate. Both provide on-demand heals. So for this reason, you can afford to go with more offensive supports to allow your DPSs to deal more damage. So I just want to emphasize that. Okay, so that was Balloon Party. Next we have Sotheby. Sotheby, I actually see her more as a sub DPS up until... yeah, I see her more as a sub DPS, but she does make a good backloaded healer. So if you have very squishy units, I would recommend just turn 1, just preload that healing incantation. That way the next 2 rounds you will get heals for your entire party, whether you need it or not. Yes, so Sotheby works for any support and DPS really, but she has special synergies with Druvis and Satsuki, and in the future, or not Satsuki, just Druvis, because Druvis's I3 boosts plant DPS and adds leech rate. However, in the next version, or in the second half of version 1.2, we will get Changeling. So eventually it will be basically Changeling here, Sotheby as sub DPS, and then Tooth Fairy as the healer. That is, in my opinion, the optimal team, because you want Sotheby to be on poison application duty. However, you can do it where it's Changeling, Sotheby as a healer, and then for sub DPS, you can pretty much do the other. I haven't thought that far yet. I was just throwing it out there on the fly. Okay, so we're almost done. Just 2 more healers. We got Dikke, the 5-star beast healer that everyone gets. She's a very good character who has arguably the best upcoming skin in the game. Where is she? Yeah.
Silence.
She will be a lot easier to find when she gets her event skin. But so Dikke, she is pretty much a universal healer that will work for any DPS or support. Yeah, because she pretty much just applies heals and bonus heals when you're in a pickle. She adds a little bit of damage. She has good synergy with Druvis because she is a mental healer. And she is one of the good sustain. Basically, I think she's the only healer that is able to make herself immune to status debuffs such as petrify from the enemy. So Dikke is going to be a very good healer for a lot of free-to-plays. Yeah, because when your healer gets petrified, it really sucks. And then Medicine Pocket, of course, a very universal and also is a mental healer. So she will work with any DPS, any support. So I'm sorry I didn't really look at the camera a whole lot. I was looking at my notes, just trying to rattle off everything, keep this video concise. If you like the video, please drop a like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. And if you disagree with any of my suggestions, please add it in the comment below. I'm perfectly okay with being wrong. What's more important to me is getting closer to the truth of the best team compositions available for each 5-star and 6-star unit. So thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you in the next video. Take care.